Wizards of the Coast has changed the release date for the upcoming Innistrad Midnight Vow set. We've got that and other little magical tidbits to talk about in today's Mega Magic News!
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The magic historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. We are here today to talk about a few different points of news when it comes to Magic the Gathering. Before we do that, I want to give you a little update on YouTube news as well. There was a notification in my dashboard today letting me know that YouTube is going to be unsubscribing a bunch of bot accounts from everybody's channel. So you're going to see this going across YouTube. Figured I would bring this up because YouTube's removal service doesn't really do the best job, and it treats regular people like they're bots as well. So keep your eyes peeled on the channels that you enjoy watching, because you may end up getting unsubscribed from them. So just make sure you're subscribed to all the channels you want to be subscribed to. Now, let us dive in to the magical news. The first item on the list is this right here. So Magic the Gathering, they posted this yesterday, and it says the worldwide release of Innistrad Midnight Hunt has shifted 1 week to September 24th. We'll have more to share about the set later this summer. And I will admit a tad bit of confusion when the link that they're sharing there is talking. It's just a link to Wizards' website, but it's talking about Strixhaven, which adds a little bit of confusion where you're like, wait a minute, this is an announcement about Innistrad, but it says Strixhaven down here. But where I think they actually genuinely messed up is the way that they've worded this. Instead of using the word shifted, what they should have said was it's been pushed back, right? Because shifted means it could have gone in either direction. And you can actually see there is a bit of confusion in response tweets to this saying, wait, is it happening in a week earlier now? Is it happening a week later? What exactly is going on? And then they respond back going, no, it's shifted backwards. And it's like, so why not just say that? Everybody knows at this point, this is an ongoing sort of scenario, right? We've seen this happen with a number of different sets recently where the releases have been pushed back. In fact, Modern Horizons 2, which we just had, was shifted back by a week. That's why we have it now instead of a week earlier. The same thing is going on with Dungeons & Dragons Adventures in the Forgotten Realm, right? That has also been shifted back a week. So choosing to not say pushed back just seems like a waste to me in terms of offering clarity. At this point, we're all accustomed to it, and I don't feel like there are too many people who are actually upset about the shifting of these dates. Admittedly, if you're somebody who has scheduled time off of work for the release weekend and now it's shifted on you, that the frustration about that is understandable. But I really don't think there's too many people that fall into the category of, wow, this messes up all my plans. And a lot of people seem to be fairly forgiving of the fact that because of all the production delays in the world, because of what's happened over the last year, this has just become par for the course. Although I've heard things are pretty awful in places like Australia, your far-flung locales, and by far-flung I just mean far-flung in terms of where Wizards is located, because they're located in the States, right? So places like Australia are having a much slower release of product. They're having a harder time getting the stuff into players' hands, which is genuinely unfortunate. It would be ideal if everybody could get all of their stuff all at the same time and we could have the releases happening on schedule. And I'll be real, I genuinely feel like going forwards for a significant amount of time, the ripples of what's happened are still going to be affecting production. I mean, when you look at like job posting websites and things like that, you will see that there's a lot of urgent hiring going on right now as all kinds of companies are trying to get back up to proper production speeds. And this seems to be across the board on all different levels of like the employment environment, right? Businesses are struggling to try and ramp up, but I'm figuring that we're probably going to see not just this Innistrad set shifted back, we're probably going to see the Crimson Vow one that comes after that shifted, and I also wouldn't be surprised to see shifts backwards in 2022. However, Wizards of the Coast hasn't really announced what we're getting in 2022 or the release schedule for it. So that stuff might actually get factored in the first place, and we won't see them shifting it because they'll have a better projection of when these things are going to be released. Because bear in mind, Wizards of the Coast tells us all the sets that are coming out in a year well in advance, right? We already know what's happening all the way up to the end of the year. And I do appreciate that level of clarity and communication, but obviously it means that if you set dates for events and then realize you can't get the product out in time. I've seen some people trying to say that, this is because they couldn't get the sets programmed into Arena in a timely manner, and I don't really believe that's the case. I think the only thing that's going to cause a delay of a Magic set release is actually problems getting your hands on the physical cards, because it certainly feels like Wizards of the Coast is okay with putting new sets out on Arena and not having them function properly right away and working out the bugs kind of as you go patchwork, right? So for me, I see this as being centered on genuine physical production issues. So that's a heads up on what's going on with Innistrad Midnight Hunt. The next item on our agenda is the coming soon. As I said, Dungeons & Dragons Adventures in the Forgotten Realm. I already mentioned it in the video. A big unwieldy name, but what looks to be probably the most exciting set of the year. Sure, Modern Horizons 2 had some nice, big, beefy boy craziness. Don't get me wrong. There's a bunch of stuff I like in that set. But Dungeons & Dragons is such a unique beast in terms of being a Magic set that I'm genuinely super excited to see what we're going to be getting. And that's what we're going to talk about right now is the coming soon commander decks, because we have the names of the different commander decks that are going to be available from Dungeons & Dragons Adventures in the Forgotten Realm. I guess just calling it the D&D set's probably the easiest thing to do for now, but who knows? If this set does well enough, we may actually see Dungeons & Dragons Adventures in Dragonlance. Adventures in Krynn, I guess they would call it. But I feel like probably maybe using the Dragonlance name itself would be a better marketing tool. Either way, they've got the Dragonlance novels that are going to be upcoming. If this D&D set sells well enough and gets enough hype around it, then it's easy to see them returning next year or another year down the road and going, you know what, we're going to make another core set into a Dungeons & Dragons set instead, right? Because this is a Dungeons & Dragons thing here it's a bit of a weird beast in that it doesn't count as canon in the Magic universe, but it's also not considered universes beyond. So you know how with all the upcoming Secret Lair and Warhammer 40k commander decks and all that, they're creating something called Universes Beyond where it all exists out there because it's not canon? Well, I guess because Wizards of the Coast owns Dungeons & Dragons and it's their IP, they've decided to not have that situated outside in the Universes Beyond, but still function in a similar capacity, which is a really odd decision, but it does allow them the freedom to just make whatever they want. So, we have 4 different deck names. The first is Dungeons of Death, and that totally feels D&D style. We don't know that much about the dungeon concept yet, but we do know there will be specific dungeon cards. It's not clear whether they're going to be cards that you start with in your hand or if they're going to be cards that you play with in your sideboard or a combination of the two. But we do know that they're going to include special dungeon cards with each of the pre-release kits for the Dungeons & Dragons pre-release. So, assuming that this is totally focused on the dungeons concept and exploring into dungeons makes perfect sense. I'm really excited about seeing how the whole dungeon mechanic plays out because that's one of the big parts of Dungeons & Dragons, right? I mean, there's some fairly standard things. Going to the inn to gather rumors, getting the little adventure hook that gets you going, yeah, let's go. And then it's like, we have to go into this dungeon full of the remaining forces of this ancient lich who died 1,000 years ago. And so there's just, there's some troops there, but they're just goblins or whatever. It's not that big a deal. And so you get there and you find out the rumors lied. Sure, on the top levels, there's goblins. And after you go down a few more floors, it seems mainly abandoned and dusty. But then when you start getting into the deeper levels, whoa, there's some big, powerful beasts left down here. And you go, whoa, I'm surprised these things haven't left the dungeon since the lich has been gone for over 1,000 years. and then you find out, nope, the Lich hasn't been gone for 1,000 years. They spread rumors all over the place about basically the Lich orchestrated rumors of their demise so they could continue their studies in peace. But now here you are, and you've intruded deep into their den, and they will make you pay. You know what I mean? Like, there's such amazing flavor that surrounds the concept of dungeon delving. It's where you face usually your greatest threats, but also the greatest rewards, and you got all kinds of traps and puzzles, and it's very emblematic of Dungeons and Dragons. So a Dungeons of Death deck makes perfect sense. The next deck we have is going to make a lot of people happy, and that is Draconic Rage. Very clearly, that's going to be based around dragons. Now, we've already seen Tiamat, the goddess, the evil dragon goddess, the five-headed dragon lord, with all kinds of crazy, powerful aspects to her. So, will we end up with that being like Tiamat being the face card of the deck? I wouldn't be surprised at all. I mean, it feels like a pretty easy choice, considering the card literally lets you tutor up more dragons, right? And I love the fact that we're getting dragons from Dungeons and Dragons, because most of Magic's dragons are all fire breathers. But Dungeons and Dragons has all kinds of breath weapons. You can have energy breath weapons, you can have like chlorine, like literally like a gaseous cloud of it that comes out and just corrodes things and chokes the lungs or whatever. You can have dragons that spew ice. Like, there's so many different variations and types of dragons. Good dragons, evil dragons, neutral dragons. I literally couldn't tell you off the top of my head how many different dragons there are. Because you have your standardized like red, white, green, but then they go into like metallic dragons, gemstone dragons. I remember the section of dragons in the old like monstrous manual being a big, thick section. So we've got a lot of area to explore with dragons. There are a lot of dragon fans who play Magic the Gathering. So Draconic Rage is a really easy and obvious choice. Makes perfect sense from a D&D perspective as well. The next deck on the list is Aura of Courage. And this one seems pretty straightforward in that it will most likely be a white-green aligned enchantment-based deck where you put out creatures and just put a bunch of like enchantments on them. That's the vibe I get. When I think Aura of Courage, I think of an enchantment-focused deck. The easiest choice for that in Magic colors right now is white-green, especially with the Courage as the name. If it was going to be black aligned or black-red, it would probably be Aura of Dread, right? So it makes sense. A white-green enchantment deck. Of the 4 decks that are listed, to me, that's the least exciting just from the name of it. Seeing what it is in execution maybe will change things like that. But I'll admit that when I think of auras and enchanting creatures and stuff, I'm old school. And for the longest time, creature enchantments weren't very good, right? So they would basically lead to you getting 2 for 1 all the time. I'll enchant my creature. Great, I'll destroy your creature. You lose both. And you're like, oh, no! But, I mean, in recent times, Wizards does seem to have taken steps to make auras more resilient, letting you draw a card when they come out, or whatever else, bringing them back from the graveyard. Different ways to get around the fact that playing an aura is basically begging to lose resources, right? That's what you're going for there. So, the 4th and final deck is Planar Portal. Now, that's a really interesting one to me. What is the idea behind the Planar Portal going to be? Is it going to be that we get to see things from different, like, aspected realms? It really, out of all the 4 decks, it's the one that isn't very obvious to me. I don't know right off the top of my head what it could be, but it also excites my curiosity the most, because portals to other dimensions are inherently exciting, right? The idea of going and exploring a new place, maybe unknown to you, possibly hostile. The Dungeons and Dragons world has tons of different planes of existence. There's the astral plane, there's all the elemental planes, and then there's divine planes. Like, there's lots of different locations to go to. and I love exploring new things in Magic. So that's the one that's got me the most hyped out of the 4. Now, we do have one more little tidbit to talk about, and that's this cute little guy right here. So some of you may remember that Wizards of the Coast made a mistake with the Valentine's Day Secret Lairs, and they left the heliod cards out of them unintentionally. So this little packet here is what Wizards of the Coast has sent out with the heliod and goblin tokens to each person who ordered those box sets but didn't get their heliods, which, spoiler, is everybody. Nobody got the heliods originally. But I do like the look of this little package. You take a look at it and you're like, oh, that's kind of cute. And they put a heart on it like, yeah, you know, it's like our Valentine's Secret Day lair. I like the fact that they took a little extra step to give it this funky little packaging. And also, I have to say, yesterday, after opening, if you guys didn't watch yesterday's video, I compared a regular Secret Lair and an Ultimate Secret Lair, opened them up, showed you all the packaging and everything goes with it. It's pretty wild. So seeing this, at least it's only a little bit of packaging. So well done on that. And that, my friends, wraps up all of the magical news. I will reiterate, keep an eye on your YouTube subscriptions because YouTube is going to be doing some house cleaning. Other than that, I'd say go check out yesterday's video on Secret Lairs if you haven't. Big thanks to all my patrons, and I will see all of you next time.